start off this week's Grow weather forecast with a check of the drought monitor. Now in Nebraska, we aren't looking at much change compared to last week. This week, roughly around 74% of the state not included in a drought category. Last week, around 75% of the state was not included in a drought category. Another thing that has changed in Nebraska this week, the introduction of some moderate drought in portions of southern Nebraska. You can see that in that lighter brown shading. Now in Kansas, not much change there in terms of who's not included in a drought category. We're roughly looking at around 1% of Kansas not included in a drought category, and that stayed the same for this week. We're looking at just around 1% of the state not included in a drought category. But one thing that changed earlier this week, the governor of Kansas did make drought declarations, as we are looking at that continuing for Kansas, and he has included all of the counties in Kansas in either emergency status, warning status, or watch status in terms of the drought. But let's talk about what's ahead. We'll start off with precipitation 1 month out. Parts of the south still looking at potential for below normal precipitation 1 month out, stretching into New Mexico and into California as well. Other parts of the East Coast looking at the potential for below normal precipitation for 1 month out. Anything not shaded looking at equal chances, but you can see portions of northern Nebraska could see some above normal precipitation for 1 month out. That also stretches into other parts of the northern plains. 3 months out, still looking at equal chances for Nebraska, almost all of Kansas, but a small area of southern Kansas looking at the potential for below normal precipitation 3 months out, stretching into Texas and farther west. And then the East Coast and farther west could see some above normal precipitation for 3 months out. Let's switch gears to temperatures. Anywhere not shaded, once again looking at equal chances. So we could see some below normal temperatures for 1 month out for portions of northern Nebraska, stretching into the northern plains, and then above normal temperatures are expected for 1 month out, including Texas, all of Oklahoma, a small area of Kansas as well, and you can see a large area looking at that potential for 1 month out, and then an even larger area 3 months out, looking at that potential for above normal precipitation, temperatures for 3 months out. Anywhere not shaded, including northern Nebraska, looking at equal chances, and northern parts of the U.S. looking at below normal temperatures for 3 months out. But in terms of our almanac for this week, normal high this time of year right around 51, normal low 28 degrees, and we're looking at our week ahead average a few degrees above that, 53 degrees, and then our week ahead average low also just a few degrees above with 31 degrees. And here's our proverb for this week: winds in March and rains in April promise great blessings in May.
Nebraska farmers grow their own market through ethanol, creating jobs but also demand for corn.
Trucks deliver corn with a promise to farmers that their grain will become their ethanol. Aurora Cooperative is a partner in a pair of plants. Farmers say it creates a built-in market for the corn Nebraska produces so well.
If we wouldn't have ethanol, why our basis would be the biggest change in
capacity of the plants.
Neil Curler is CEO of Pacific Ethanol, one of the biggest producers in the country. He says it's high octane at a low cost with environmental benefits.
It's the fastest way to clean up tailpipe emissions. It provides jobs and economic development. It's got everything going for it.
But that begs the question.
Then what's wrong with this picture? Why aren't we selling more of it? And that gets to what is really a market share battle with the oil industry.
Curler says he'd like more cooperation with the big players in the oil industry.
That's why we've been focusing on the independent retailers who have significant amounts of distribution channels. Not as much in the large urban areas, but certainly in the rural areas where they don't own the refineries, they don't own the oil wells. They want the best product for the consumer, and that's E15.
And speaking of rural areas, Curler says 95% of ethanol is produced in counties that voted for President Trump, and industry leaders like what they've seen from him.
He was very explicit in his support for ethanol in the RFS. He continues to be so, even though he has a number of oil guys in his administration.
Bill Schuster says ethanol is the second biggest user of corn after livestock.
So it's kind of a hand and glove type of a deal.
In both cases, adding value to Nebraska corn at a time when every cent matters.
Still to come, many call it an act of God. A young farmer who survived a grain bin accident and now shares his story. We'll share his story next.